there's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamma Mia podcast.
Why, hello there, it's Claire here. Hope you're well today, pun intended. We've been chatting a bit about some hormone-related things recently, and honestly, there's barely a condition that we haven't been able to find some kind of hormone connection to, but today we've got a special one for you. One of the shows in the Mamma Mia stable is called Mid, and it speaks to women of a certain age about a lot of things that could be happening in their lives around midlife. Holly Wainwright, who you might know from our other podcast, Mamma Mia Out Loud, is the host of Mid. She's truly such a wonderful, warm and kind human, and that really comes through in the conversation she's had on the show over the years. In this episode of Mid, she speaks to Grace Lam, who's also joined the Mamma Mia team, just quietly, as co-host of the very funny Unleashed podcast, which you should definitely check out if you want to have a really good laugh today. But in this episode, Grace, a former high fashion editor for Vogue, talks about how her hormones really turned her life completely upside down. And that experience took her all the way to the WA Senate to discuss the changes this country needs to make to better support women going through this transition. Check it out.
For me, sobbing in a tent was the first sign. Not unreasonable, of course. Camping is bullshit. But the day I found myself crying, flinging things around a polyester palace so sleep-deprived I could barely stand, I began to wonder if maybe this wasn't me. It was me on peri. Was that why I was suddenly so anxious, so short of breath and spinny of brain? Were hormones to blame for those sparkly auras and ass-kicking headaches? Why couldn't I remember the word for migraine anymore? I think you know the answer. In fact, I know you do. Because when I asked you, my mid friends, what your hormonal tell was, the most surprising and weird thing that began to happen to you when you landed here in the decade of menopausal change, you told me. Oh, you told me. You told me so much and so well that I've written you a poem. A sonnet maybe, a song perhaps. A love note at the very least to all my mid-sisters. I see you, you see each other. Maybe we should call it The Ballad of Peri and Menno, the least amusing characters in the latest Pixar cartoon about a woman's hormonal life. Let's start with hair loss, a banging heart and throwing it back to acne, vertigo, itchy ears and sore hips, welcoming in a flare of IBS and a couple of panic attacks, crawling skin, tasting metal and a frozen shoulder. And did we mention the never ever sleeping? A sudden onset idiot allergy, sore feet and no libido, fury, rosacea and self-loathing, forgetfulness, oceans of tears and leaky wee, dry eyes, a scratchy head and an absence of shits to give. And then there are the clots and the flooding, an angry vagina, rage, a missing waist and waking in a puddle, crumbly teeth and self-doubt and a permanent hangover, restless legs, a shrivelly vag and gingivitis, tinnitus and a beard. Oh, sorry, we forgot again to mention the anxiety, the sudden pounding, life-halting panic. Oh, we did. That must be the brain fog. Welcome, mids, to my tent and yours. We're all in this together, just not at the same time. That would be a sight to see. Hello, I am Holly Wainwright and I am mid-life, mid-family, mid-search for my hormone patches. When we invented mid, some people, former guest Kylie Gillies amongst them perhaps, said to me, it's not just going to be a show about hot flushes, is it? Well, no, it's not. Well, it wasn't until that intro that I just wrote for you. Maybe it was a little much, but you're a hard bunch to shock. Thank you to all the mids who sent me their most surprising hormonal symptoms that we turned into that intro. We made it as far as episode 18 for the show for Gen X women who are anything but, and we haven't even tackled the big M yet. Or, the big P. Menopause, perimenopause, the change. All that stuff that we're not meant to talk about. All that stuff that's a bit, embarrassing, awkward, old. And yet suddenly women are talking about it. It's as if when the rebellious women of Gen X lost our estrogen, we found our voices, looking around and going, hold up, we're just supposed to put up with all this? If it's true that the generation above are rolling their eyes about us because they rode the hormone roller coaster with rolled up sleeves and gritted teeth, we're sorry, not sorry about that. This is a show about grown-up women, and we could do many, many episodes about hormones and peri and menopause, and you know what? We probably will. But here is our first. And if you haven't met Grace Lam yet, you're going to be very glad you did. Grace once gave Kate Moss a pair of her own knickers to wear on a fashion shoot. Yes, you heard that right. For more than 25 years, Grace lived and breathed the rarefied air of high fashion, working for and with everyone from, yes, Kate Moss and all of the supermodels to Edward Enninful, who's an OBE. She's worked all over the world and was part of the launch team of Vogue China, staying in Asia then for 12 years before coming to settle in Perth with her husband and her son and to build a new business, which is a bespoke-like styling and shopping service with an emphasis on mid-women. Everything was going according to plan for the talented, organised, focused Grace until hormones entirely upended her tidy world. She's going to tell you about exactly what that felt like. Fast forward a few years, and Grace has become a loud and important voice for women being messed with by their hormones. She's brought her voice all the way to the halls of government. She's recently just appeared, for example, before the Western Australian Senate public hearing on issues about peri and menopause, telling government what we actually need to change systemically in our medical institutions to catch up with what we all need. Grace is sharp and funny and honest and no bullshit, like you. I think you're going to like her. Oh, and she's sweary. So yes, you're definitely going to like her. I want to start with how you saw yourself and your life before perimenopause. So I want you to paint me a picture of Grace pre-aged 48.
I wasn't even thinking about perimenopause and menopause. First of all, I didn't know the word perimenopause existed. I've always heard only menopause. My life was as normal as you can imagine. When I was living in Hong Kong, so I'm from Hong Kong originally, but I lived most of my life in London. So I'm a true Londoner, Hong Konger, and life was great. I've got one kid to Perth just before COVID, and everything was fine, and then suddenly one night it hit me like a brick, and everything changed that night.
You moved to Perth with your family, and you are going about your busy, hyper-organised life. And then what happens when perimenopause hits you like a train?
It really hit me like a train wreck. One night I was like sleeping, and then suddenly I could not sleep for the next 4 or 5 weeks, just out of the blue.
When you say that, do you mean literally you couldn't sleep for 4 weeks? Because I've heard you say this, like insomnia for that long.
Oh yeah. When I first came to Perth, I was so burnt out just from having like this fashion life in Hong Kong and London, whatever and stuff, right? I hadn't stopped for like, I don't know how many years, like 20 years. So when I came to Perth, because Perth's so chill, I was like, okay, I'm just going to take some time off work. I'm not going to do anything. And then COVID hit, which was like kind of a good timing in a way. So I wasn't stressed. And I was like, am I stressed? I'm not stressed. I'm not working. I'm just taking some time off. So I'm not stressed. So why am I not sleeping? So the first few days I thought, oh, maybe it's just something happened. Like maybe I'm kind of like, unconscious stress. And then when it started hitting like the second week, the third week, I was like, this is weird. Something's not right. And I couldn't even comprehend what was happening because I hadn't researched anything. I didn't know anything. I kind of start feeling like my brain was out of my head for most days. Just couldn't put sentence together. And it's not because I've got bad English. It just felt so surreal. I felt like I was having like an out-of-body experience every day for the next at least 4 to 5 weeks. And because I followed Davina McCall from UK, a very famous TV presenter, and she's a huge menopause advocate, I started tapping into the whole menopause world. And then, of course, she teamed up with Dr. Naomi Porter, who wrote a brilliant book, Menopausing. And then I discovered Dr. Louise Newson, all these amazing women that helped me through the time when I felt so lost in my life. I just didn't know what was happening. And my mood swing was like, up and down like, roller coaster. I mean, I'm a moody bitch anyway, and I can go from like 0 to 1,000 within a second. But I've calmed down so much more for the past 5 years. I felt like something it wasn't right. And I knew, the kind of menopause rage is so different from your normal rage. You feel it in your bones that it's kind of like a different part of your brain that's happening. And I think the day when my husband said to me, he probably said something like, what do you want for dinner? And I just blew up and I kicked out our IKEA bin and I dented it. And I was like, whoa, I mean, my Kung Fu skills is great, but not this great, I just knew something was happening.
It's so interesting. So it started with insomnia. Now, I'm going to ask you to list some of your symptoms in a minute because I have listened to the remarks that you gave to the Perth Senate on their menopause inquiry, and the list is long. But for the women listening, it's interesting because when these things first start happening to you, you don't know that's what it is. And then as you say that your pennies began to drop and you began to see this information around from Davina McCall and others, it can be hard to see the wood for the trees, right? Like you're kind of like, oh, I'm moody. Oh, I'm sleepless. Oh, I'm this and that. You started to keep a diary, didn't you, of your symptoms? And can you tell me some of the other things apart from the sleeplessness and rage that were happening to you in this period?
I had like breast tenderness, which was weird, and then palpitation. It wasn't severe, but I felt like sometimes my heart would miss a beat. And I thought, this is kind of weird. Tinnitus, I couldn't hear. At one point at the beginning stage, I was so sensitive to noise to the point that, if my husband bashed a pots and pans, I'd be like, ouch, And then joint pain, my fingers start getting really like painful. And then I gained a lot of like belly fat and kind of crawly skin a little bit. I just felt tired. And then, the weirdest thing was I started feeling driving anxiety, which I know is a symptom, but I didn't know it was a symptom then. And I started being very nervous about driving. For God's sake, I'm an F1 Formula One fan. Even though I drive very safely, I'm all about, like watching F1. I'm like, why am I scared of driving? I thought, maybe because I'm kind of newish to Perth. I'm like, no, it was so weird. It was very strange. I would get into the car and I would feel nervous, not to mention that people in Perth drive like crazy, which is kind of really weird, It's such a chill place, but people drive like lunatics here.
Because this was a period of change for you anyway, right? With the career change and moving to a new country, you obviously are a very high achieving woman. You're juggling being a mum, you're juggling being a wife. Were you hard on yourself at that time before you began to get the help you needed? Was it also like a bash to your self-esteem to think, why am I suddenly this messy, angry, anxious lady?
No, I mean, I've always been quite a confident person. I wasn't hard on myself in that sense, but I was hard on myself on my to-do list every day. Even though I wasn't working full time, I had a lot of to-do lists, clean this, do that, make homemade cookies or whatever and stuff. And when I wasn't doing that, I was so pissed off at myself. I'm not a good mother. I'm not this. I'm not, I need to do this, everything, right? It's not up until maybe last year, I started telling myself small wins are the real wins rather than like all these like massive fucking to-do lists. I mean, who's got the time, when you're like a full-time mom and you've got things to do, you've got to get shit done. I mean, the to-do list every day, just too massive. And I started saying to myself, okay, out of the 10 things, if you do 3 things, you're winning. So as soon as I took that kind of mindset, it really helped me to like take it easy on myself a bit more. I'm always been quite a confident woman, but I think sometimes I would have self-doubt to a point that I was like, that's so weird because I'm so confident. Why am I having all these feelings? And once I acknowledge that, I'm like, slap myself out of it. I'm like, you know what? You're not that kind of woman, just step up.
You feel like you're turning into someone else, don't you? It's really strange. So then once you've realised this, and as you say, you're following some amazing advocates online, you needed to get yourself some practical help. So you were very deliberate about who you wanted to seek out to help you. Tell me about how you first approached getting medical help at this point.
I started a menopause group chat with 2 moms at my son's schools because they are going through perimenopause. The first thing I told them is to start a diary, which helps so much. I said, write every single details down, whether you have a twitch in your eye or whatever and stuff. I said, all these symptoms that you don't think is important, they make all the puzzles together when you go and see your GP or your specialist. I have a great clinic near where I live, so I normally go there for anything, right? So I deliberately chosen an Asian GP. She's a bit older than me, and she's a super nice lady. I deliberately chose her because she's Asian, and I know that she's going through menopause. So I thought, she can relate to me. But she didn't know much. I have to tell her quite a lot because before I went, I did shitloads of homework. And Dr. Naomi Porter gave advice about what you need to say when you go to your first appointment. I didn't know that I could ask for an extension appointment. So my appointment was like maybe maximum 8 minutes. it's really short. My list of questions was just far too long. I'll probably need an hour. She gave me 8 minutes maximum, and then, gave me some sleeping pills, and that was it. And I'm like, I didn't actually use the sleeping pills because I don't want to be addicted to it, even though I wasn't sleeping for like 4 or 5 weeks. But it just goes to show how little GP knows about menopause. It baffles me because, half the population is a woman.
Exactly. And also, as you said, you were very deliberate in seeking out a GP who you thought would know what you were talking about. But women like you who are arming yourself with the information, we're finding ourselves sometimes going into the doctor's surgery and having to be, we're the ones giving the information. It's crazy. Before we move on, didn't you say in your Senate presentation notes that she told you sleeping pills and don't take HRT because it gives you cancer? Did she say that?
Oh, yeah, she did. And then, first of all, I asked her, I said, do I need HRT? She goes, oh, no, because you don't have hot flashes. So to her, if you don't have hot flashes, you don't need HRT, which is so stupid. It's a stupid comment to make because obviously from that moment, I knew she knew nothing. So I was like, what the hell, I wasn't mean to her because she's, it's not her fault. But I was like, you actually don't know a lot. And it's kind of quite disheartening for me to come to you and you don't know much and you just gave me sleeping because this is not the way forward. How are we going to deal with this? And she said, just come back in 2 weeks after you've taken these sleeping pills. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, And that's when I knew that if you find a GP that knows her shit or his shit about menopause, it's kind of like you won the lottery. But then different friends told me about menopause specialists. So I actually went to see, my first doctor, and I've got 2 doctors now. I've changed. I'm entering my next phase of my perimenopause journey. So I've changed doctor. So going to a specialist changed my life, but it costs so much money.
Yeah, right. So you walk out of your GP, and this is a lot of the women listening will have had experiences like this. Like when I talk to women who are not maybe as plugged into all this menopause information as you became, and I am obviously through my work and things, they'll say, oh, well, I'm not a candidate for HRT because X, Y, Z. Or they do still have that lingering cancer myth bubbling around in their head. So they'll walk out of the GP just feeling disheartened and lost at that point and probably just be suffering through what comes next. Your advice to those women would be to find menopause specialist in their area, and then what happens?
I think for those who can't take HRT, there are so many ways you can help yourself. Change of diet, your lifestyle is number one. I mean, through this whole journey, I've learned so much about nutrition, food, diet, exercise, which I was never about before. I think when I had my son 11 years ago, I became more health conscious, but not to this level. So the past 2 years, I've actually learned so much from all these people. I mean, if anyone needs help, just DM me on my Instagram and I will help you. It just got to a point that so many women have messaged me and said, oh, I can't find a GP to do it. I've hooked people up in Melbourne or Sydney with GPs that I know. It's kind of crazy. It's almost like if you don't know where to start, you're so lost and you're going through all these symptoms, then your mom or your grandmother will say, oh, don't worry, just soldier on like I did. I'm like, I do not encourage soldiering on. And I almost wish that women will just help themselves by giving yourself more options. There's so much misinformation out there. You also have to be very careful what to read and who to follow to get legit, data. And I wish people can stop reading that stupid fucking report from 2002, Women's Health Initiative. Stop reading that fucking report. It's so old. And they were testing women over 60s anyway, who were too late in a way for HRT. And it was all oral HRT. So can we just stop using that gold standard of judging HRT? We've got such modern medication now. It's completely different.
It's been so discredited. So when you did find your menopause specialist, what's different about that appointment? Like when you go in there, what were you beginning to hear there that actually started to help you?
That she didn't deny it was perimenopause. My first GP who didn't know anything, she didn't deny it, but she couldn't give me more information. Whereas my menopause specialist, the first doctor, Dr. Lucy Karate, she didn't deny it. We discussed. We had a 1-hour consultation. It was great. And then all my questions were answered. And then together we planned the whole, HRT road, where we're going to start, what we're going to do, how we're going to change it, all of that. And then now with, my new doctor, Dr. Sunita from Hera Clinic, same thing, they're just a lot more thoughtful and they know their shit. They know, everything that will help you. They all have different ways, Dr. Sunita now she's super practical, which I love. And also through this journey, I realized that there's so many companies out there just using the menopause topic to capitalize on menopausal women, because they just feel like, you know what, I can sell shit to these women and they would buy anything. And I just want to say that I don't really believe in supplements unless through your blood test you show deficiency, in a certain element. Like, for example, I am deficient of vitamin D at the moment, so I am taking supplements. But in general, I wouldn't advise anyone just to go and buy all these, just don't waste your money.
That is music to my ears, Grace, because I did that. Over the last 2 years, I've had my own journey with perimenopause and menopause, and I was the person who was just desperately reaching for. I must have ordered every supplement on iHerb in the world, and they were getting delivered to me. And then I took so many of all the wrong things, I ended up getting really sick. And my doctor, who is actually a very good female GP on this issue, but she says exactly what you say. She says, if your diet is good, do not take all the snake oil supplements that everybody's selling you. Find out what you actually need. Because we're all flapping around so desperately trying to find answers to why we suddenly feel like completely different people, we're very vulnerable to being sold a whole lot of stuff we don't need, right?
Yeah, yeah. Now I've learned that I will not go to a clinic that sells supplements anymore. It's a different priority for them. I don't know. I just don't like people capitalizing on us when we're very vulnerable. It's just not right. And if you have a really good healthy diet, protein, eat enough fiber, eat your fermented food, exercise, all these are so much more important. And popping pill, I think the problem with people, not just menopausal women, we want a quick fix, whether it's Ozempic or diet, we just want to pop a pill and don't have to do any work. But unfortunately, you do have to do a lot of work when you're going through perimenopause and menopause.
I'll be back with more of my conversation with Grace Lam in a moment, but first, here's a message from the presenting partners of our show.
I'm Kate Langbrook and I host No Filter. Celeste Barber. Hi. Welcome to No Filter.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, today we're diving into the world of G-Flip.
And your voice has always been such a calming, warm energy. So that's why I tear up, because you're always growing up with you around. So thank you.
Sally Hepworth, what a absolute jewel you are in the crown of artists.
Oh, thank you. This has been lovely.
Today, we're talking to Rosie O'Donnell.
I just want to tell you, this is one of the best interviews I've ever had.
If you love conversations that go deep and stories that stay with you, listen to No Filter. New episodes of No Filter drop every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are generally often at a very busy phase in our lives as well. We're often parenting. We might be dealing with aging parents. We're often working. It feels like another job sometimes, which is why it's so important to understand who to trust. In your presentation you have to tell me how your involvement in the Perth Senate inquiry came about. But in that, you talk about the cost and you actually list out what you have and do end up spending on this. And you're advocating, obviously, for more support on this front. What kind of support do we need? And do you know if there are places in the world that are doing this a lot better than Australia?
I think the UK is definitely leading the way because they've just got so many amazing, great menopause advocates over there. I mean, their HRT costs £20 per year with all hormones. It blows my mind, so I'm taking estrogen and progesterone. And the progesterone is permetrium. That costs is it 75 or something like that? So basically, each month I will have to spend at least $200, right? But not including the supplements I used to take. So each month I will have to probably spend $400 or $500, but not to mention all the scans I have to do, breast scans, pelvic scans, this and that, and then go and see a breast cancer specialist. I mean, of course you can go public, but the queue is so long that you won't be able to see it until God knows when, right? I didn't encounter these kind of extra costs when I started this journey. And then you realize that the pharmaceutical benefit scheme, they don't cover all hormones. But with men, they do. Men can get testosterone for a subsidy, of course. So why can't we get all these three hormones that are so important to us? Testosterone is not only for men, it's for women as well, Well, so basically what happened was when I started this whole journey, as you can see, I'm not a shy woman. So I've always been If I don't like someone, I fucking tell them, man. I don't go, oh my God, no. I'm just not that kind of person.
You're good at what we call advocating for yourself.
Yes. And ever since I was very young, I actually believe that I'm like the reincarnation of Bruce Lee. Anyway,
I was going to ask you where you reckon that confidence comes from. Now I know.
Well, also, I think being a twin and the youngest girls of 4, to fight my battles with my sisters. And I don't know, I think I was just born kind of like feisty and just like, don't fuck with me kind of attitude. Anyway, back to menopause. So I was going through this journey and I was like, it's so weird that people don't talk about it, right? I've never heard any of my cousins, my female cousins or like friends in Hong Kong, they never speak about this.
Why do you think that is? What's your theory on why we haven't until this moment been comfortable speaking about it?
I think we're just embarrassed because that means that we're old.
Yeah, it's ageism, right?
100%. And also, what I find weird is that when people meet me, first of all, they can't believe I speak really good English. They're always like, oh, your English is so good. And I was like, that's a fucked up thing to say. I started saying, especially to white people, your English is also good. And they're like, oh, I think when people meet me, they can't believe first I'm like 51. And they're like, oh my God, you look so young, no, which is kind of like a compliment. But at the same time, I'm like, what do you think a 51 woman should look like, an Asian woman look like? Like super young, or like, why would you say that? Even it sounds like a compliment is actually quite annoying for me because you kind of like typecasting, Asian woman, right? And also, I just want to normalize the conversation right from the start. So when I meet men, especially, I always tell them, if I have a brain fart moment, it's because of my perimenopause. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's my perimenopause brain fart. And if I do any public speaking, there's the first thing I bring it up because I want to normalize that conversation. You know what? People get used to it because every other woman is going to go through the same thing. And people sometimes don't know how to take it. And I'm like, you know what? Fucking deal with it.
I love this, right, Grace, because I'm a little bit the other way in that I can be I don't want you to think that my hormones are impeding me being good at my job or able to do this or able to do that. So I often kind of minimize it. And I love that attitude of like, no, we need to normalize it. And then that way we unpick that stereotype. I also wanted to ask you, though, about the aging and people telling you look good for your age and all that nonsense. Living and working in the world that you had worked in all those years, were you worried about aging? Like, were you worried about that from an external perspective?
No, I wasn't even thinking about it. During my whole 27 years of working in the fashion industry, I think when I was younger, in my 20s, I was more jaded than anything because after I knew how much these supermodels were earning, by walking down the catwalk, and I was there doing one of the toughest job as an assistant, last one to leave, first one to get there, just sorting out shit for people. I'm like, I'm getting paid peanuts compared to these women who are they're taller, they've got an amazing face, figure. I think I was more jaded than anything, but luckily my character doesn't let me go to that dark side. And I was like, well, different people, different purpose in life, right? I think when I started this whole perimenopause journey, I just want to break the stigma of menopausal women. I want to show that we are also very fashionable. We are not all dowdy. I think it's the image that really annoys me about menopausal women or women above a certain age. And what I find quite interesting with some younger women, I sometimes almost feel like they think they're like invincible and then they're never going to get old. I want to just tell them that you will get to my stage at one point, and then you realize that, you know what, this older woman, I shouldn't have made fun of them. I shouldn't have all that, not just younger girls, men as well, right? When men get older, they could always go for younger girls, not all men, I'm not generalizing. But when we get old or when we have gray hair, we're like trying to hide it, trying to dye her, doing all that. And it's like we've passed our prime. One of the recommendations from the Senate inquiry hearing is to have a new campaign for menopause. Me and my friend Maria from Perimenopause, who lives in Melbourne, she called me, she's like, hey, let's talk about this. We'll do a new campaign, And when we were talking on the phone just 2 weeks ago, it suddenly dawned on me, I had a really great idea. And I want to change how we are perceived in society. That can we stop just showing like really elderly woman, like laughing, smiley, I just want to make it really cool and relatable to younger women and younger girls and boys and men to change the whole dynamic of how they see midlife women. is very important, especially you can't use the old methods anymore. And this has to be a new way of seeing it. There has to be a new way.
I'm going to ask you in a little bit about some of your advice about that for those of us who are feeling ourselves turning invisible. But to be back to this, you finally get the help you need. You've now been on HRT for a while. Where do you feel you're at now? Like, how do you feel in terms of giving women who are listening to this and struggling with it hope? Like, do you feel amazing? Do you feel like your old self? Do you feel like an evolved version? Has the HRT fixed everything? Where are you now?
Okay, so when I first started my HRT, I was on a very low dose of estrogen, like 25 strength mcg, which is the lowest dose because we need to test out how my body will react to it. That night, I slept like a baby. So I know I'm one of the rare women that worked immediately. Some women takes like a year, 6 months or 3 months for it to happen. I was very lucky to have that kind of magic touch, I would say if I wasn't on this HRT journey, I think I would have been such a bitch to my son and my husband. I can't tell you how great this journey has been. I've learned so much, and HRT has given me my life back. And I really wish that women would just give it a go if you can take it. Some of my friends who are prone to cancer, they are also on HRT because they weigh out the pros and cons. I mean, talk to your doctor. We're not medical doctors.
No,
we
course.
can't give medical advice, but I would definitely weigh out the pros and cons versus soldiering on. HRT has changed my life. I feel so normal now. I get 8 hours sleep. I mean, I still wake up now and then. The brain fog still happens, but it's less severe. But I find that when I speak, I guess because English is my second language, sometimes I find it quite, like the puzzle doesn't match as quickly as before. So sometimes I go blank. I was talking to someone about giving birth, and I couldn't remember for the life of me. So I can't even remember now. When I had a C-section and then they gave me epidural. I couldn't remember epidural for months. It was so weird. I'm like, I should know that word. Come on, stuff like that. So it really helped me to gain my life back and just to be like a nice person. I mean, I'm not a nice woman.
I love this. I love you. You have let go of that people pleasering, I want people to like me stuff that a lot of women struggle with. And then when they hit midlife and suddenly go, I hate everybody, it's a really big shock for them. You're going, look, I was kind of like that anyway, but I just...
Yeah, so I can't really blame menopause. It's been a whole eye-opening journey, and I wouldn't change a thing. Because through this whole journey, I met so many amazing women in Australia and worldwide. In UK, I've made so many online friends, and it's a great community. And also, I want to, tell the audience that just be very careful when you go on Facebook and join those menopause group. There's so much like misinformation out there, and I really advise you to seek professional help, because some of those advice, I'm just like so shocked on when people like suggest this and that. And yeah, just be very careful about where you get your information from.
You gave evidence to the Perth Senate inquiry. You gave a presentation. What's the outcome of that you want? And what are the main things that you think that like a systemic changes that can make things better for us rather than things that we can do?
Oh my God, so many. There's so many. There are 25 recommendations. I haven't had time to read all of them because I think it's about 160 something pages, this report. But I urge everyone to go on the government website or go on my Instagram, Grace Lam Style. I put it on my bio link so you can read everything. First of all, education across the board medical system, all GPs, nurses, and I would love for everyone to work together. Psychiatrists, therapists, physio, nutritionists, dietitians, everyone can jump on board and help us. It's all related, how you eat, what you do, what exercise you do, Oh no, my first doctor said to me that I shouldn't do HIIT exercise because of, perimenopause. Then I realized that after do more research that actually you can do a certain amount, but you're not overdo it to stress your body. And then my other friend was like, recommending a trainer for me. But then I'm like, I'm not going to go for a trainer who's like 20 years old, don't know what I'm going through.
That's my whole thing is I'm like, if I'm going to get a trainer, I'm scanning for the older face in the room.
Exactly, 100%, So I want GPs to have mandatory annual revision training because they need to be, updated with new technology, new symptoms, and to have longer GP consultations for all women, a lot more subsidies on medication for all three hormones that we need, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, and to give more funding to all the scanning and checks that we need. Because at the moment, it's just all out of my pocket. And it's just like, I'm a freelancer, I just can't keep like giving out $500 here and then for one scan. And also education in middle school and high school and universities, so that boys and girls know what's coming for them. And especially men, they need to know.
I think that those are a great place to start, because I think that when people are like, well, what can be done? It's like, those are very practical things that can be done.
Yeah.
Like better awareness and training across the board, for the medical profession. More subsidies for what we need medically. Like it feels like that should be table stakes.
And menopause leave at workplace, and also educating employers, employees at the workplace. So there's no stigma, no bias when they take time off, or no judgment. And women can feel like they can have a conversation with their boss or like their colleagues without being judged. This is the thing about this whole menopause talk, because people don't want to be judged. Oh yeah, she's old, she's past her prime. I'm like, we're all going to get old, men included. So we need to stop that kind of like judgmental conversation. Yeah. And for the government to jump on board, I mean, come on, surely they've all got wives, sisters, cousins, mothers, and daughters. So don't they want to have a happy wife, happy life, happy daughter, happy life,
And tap into our wisdom and experience, right? We're smart as. That's the thing I tell people all the time. We're the people you want to hire and listen to, because we've been around the block and we understand how the world works. I'll be back in a moment. I was really curious to know where all this grit and sort of bolshy determination came from in Grace. And you're about to find out. It isn't what I was expecting.
Want to feel good more often in 2026? Hi, we're here for you. Move by Mamma Mia helps you fit movement into your everyday, giving you more of me time whenever you need it. From strength and cardio to yoga and Pilates, with workout plans that fit every space, every body, and whether you've got 10 minutes or 40. Start 2026 with enjoyable movement from just $9.99 a month. Mamma Mia subscribers get unlimited access. Head to move.mamamia.com.au and use MoveMe to get $20 off an annual subscription.
You've said a lot about the stigma and stereotyping you've experienced as an Asian woman living in the UK and Australia. How do you think that those challenges have intersected with the aging and menopause journey, particularly with the medical community?
I mean, I think Asian women have always had a reputation of being very, not all, because I know a lot of strong, like outspoken Asian women as well. Sometimes, when I don't have my resting bitch face on, people think because I'm Asian, they think first I don't speak good English. And then because I banter a lot with people, they don't expect that. And they think I'm like docile, really like demure, really like quiet. So I think that's why I became who I am, because I want to break that kind of Asian woman stigma. And also because I had a bad racist attack in the UK when I lived there. I was actually beaten up by this random guy at a bus stop in Brighton.
No.
And because I was a Chinese girl, he basically kicked the shit out of me and told me to go back to where I came from.
Shit. How old were you then, Grace?
18.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's racism everywhere. I think just being Asian and being Chinese, people have this kind of image of us being really quiet and we don't speak out. I mean, I've had quite a lot of racism here in Australia, a lot more in the past few years compared to the 20 years I've lived in the UK.
Like overt racism? I mean, I know racism's racism, but...
I mean, during COVID, I was very aware of racism here because I saw on the internet that people in the East Coast were attacking like Chinese people because they thought that, Chinese people, they brought COVID. And I was very aware and very careful when I went out in Perth, especially when I was with my son. And I almost felt like part of me was a bit lost. The fire was lost in me because I was so scared people was going to attack me, especially when I was with my son. So my husband would come with me everywhere because he's white and he was being very protective. But it was on my birthday, the day I was, just going for a walk by myself, and my husband was away down south of Perth. He's a photographer, so he was doing some documentary for a job. So I was by myself, with my son, and he went to school. So I went for a walk. It's my birthday. This middle-aged white guy cycled past me, and he was like, "Go back to your fucking came from, you fucking Chinese." And I was like, I was so shocked that happened in Perth because I thought Perth people are quite chill. And I think because of COVID, everything just kind of like blew up. The old Grace Lam would have chased him down the street, just going, you fucking wanker. I want to use the C word, but I don't think I should. I would have just gone off and just go, who the fuck do you think you are? I would have just gone off. But because of my older age, I became very wise. And I thought, okay, I'm single parenting this week. I don't want to end up in a police station on my birthday. And then what will my son think? And I did all of that. So I bit my tongue and just kept on walking. I was so furious at him and at myself. And I think things like this make me think like, do I keep on being myself and being very feisty, outspoken in this kind of situation? Or do I go opposite, right? And I think when I was attacked when I was 18, the next day, I changed everything. The way I look at things, the way I am with myself. I said to myself, no one is going to fuck with me anymore. And I'm going to stand up for my people. And that's why sometimes when people meet me, they don't understand why I am the way I am. And when I tell them that story, they kind of understand. Because I want to break the stigma, not only with menopausal women, but being an Asian woman. I want to break that kind of stigma. We're all not quiet. We're all not docile. We have a voice. So, and also being a perimenopausal woman, I just want people to think of Asian women differently. Just because we don't get hot flashes as much as maybe a Western woman, doesn't mean that we're not going through so much, at the moment. We're not going through as many symptoms as they are.
That story is, I was going to say remarkable, but that's probably the wrong word because it probably isn't remarkable in terms of, the reality of how regularly that shit happens. We did an episode about rage on this show, and one of the questions we were discussing on it was about midlife rage and whether it is all hormonal or if there's an element of what you were just describing, which happened to you when you were 18, which is this like, I'm sick of this shit. You know what I mean? Whoever you are and wherever you're from. But the thing is that your experiences, that's exactly what you're describing, is like, I'm not going to lie down and suck up this shit. I'm going to change it. I'm going to speak out. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. But often a lot of women get to this point of life and go, I'm fucking done.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never been that kind of person to shut up. So, yeah, it's funny when people, say to me, oh, I think it's great that what you're doing on your Instagram, talk about menopause, it's so brave of you. I'm like, brave? Is that brave? Because to me, it's very normal, I think for me, it's actually quite abnormal not to tell people stuff. I'm sure sometimes people go, oh, Grace, take it down a notch. I definitely like to share stories and like to listen to other people's stories because then you understand people more, you judge less.
Thank you for sharing that, Grace. Look, I wanted to segue into fashion and the styling work that you do, which might sound like a bit of a pivot from what we were just discussing. But a lot of what you're about is self-expression. And I know that's what mid-women really struggle with, their identity, and that extends to our wardrobes, right? So obviously you're a stylist with immense experience and you are clearly very stylish. I can tell just from my little window, but obviously I've been looking at lots of pictures of you too.
You haven't seen my tracksuit bottom yet. I'm wearing tracksuit bottom underneath.
I bet they're very cool ones. We're flapping around in midlife trying to figure out who we are now. Part of that is what they look like and what they wear. And can I still wear this? Should I still wear that? Can I show this bit of my body? I'm changing shape. Mia always jokes that our bodies are all trying to turn themselves into a circle in midlife. They just try that. It's not necessarily about more weight or less weight, but it's this changed shape. So what's your best advice for dressing your age, as it were, in inverted commas?
I don't believe in dressing your age. I believe in if you're happy with what you're wearing, own it. It's all about confidence, how you walk out, like sometimes, even as a stylist, I know what suits me and what, don't suit me. But sometimes I always push myself to dress myself to a point that I don't know how to wear this top. How can I push it? Because once you push yourself, you realize there's a whole new world out there. And you realize that, oh, I'm more capable than this. So with some of my clients, who are in middle age, they're always like, oh, is this too young for me? I'm like, how much do you want to wear this? And they'll be like, really like this look. I'm like, just fucking own it. It's all about how you walk out. You walk out, you go into the room and you make sure that people are looking at you. It's just an aura. Or if you're not comfortable wearing it, then don't, simple as that. But just be yourself. I mean, we only live once, right? So why can't I wear a pair of shorts, just because I'm 51? I'm going to fucking own it, So with my menopause belly, which you can't really see normally, is because I know how to not enhance parts that I don't like. It's all about confidence. And I think when a lot of clothes don't fit, that's when women get stuck and they'll just go back to their old ways. I always say to my clients when we have a styling session, whether I go and visit them at home to redo their wardrobe or go shopping with them, I said, be brave. But if you're not the kind of brave person to go all out, just start with something small, like an earring. You know, if you're like an all black, dressed in black all the time, start with a small earring, which is red, or like a bracelet or necklace, something you can take off quite easily. And then you graduate to like maybe a red pair of socks. Maybe if you're wearing all black, maybe red pair of shoes to start off with. Just start with something small. Once you open up that gate, you will be a lot braver.
I've seen you describe yourself living in Perth now, that sometimes you feel like Moira from Schitt's Creek.
I know. I mean,
because you've got all the fashion, like, you know, and you're like, where am I wearing this to? Who cares? I'm wearing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have to say that, you know, Perth people are very chill. I've never seen so many like crop tops and like Lululemon pants, so many in my life in one place. But I do find myself that I don't have to dress. I mean, I can wear this for 5 days. No one gives a shit. I don't dress for other people. I dress for myself, you know, and I dress for my husband, you know, and of course, you know, you want your partner to be proud of you, you know. I'm not saying that men had to validate everything that we do, but when your partner say, oh, you look great, you know, of course you feel good. So you keep doing it. At the end of the day, you have to make yourself feel good to start your day. So sometimes I don't even go anywhere special and I'm like all red lips and like, you know, wearing all my jewelry or whatever and stuff. It's like, because I want to feel good. It's all about feeling good, especially, you know, when you're going through menopause.
What do you love about being the age that you are?
That I can tell people to fuck off whenever I want, you know. I mean, not that I don't do that before. I think now I really don't have time for like wankers. If I don't want to hang out with you, I will tell you. You know, versus before I'll be like, oh, you know, let's be polite, let's be da-da-da-da-da. Now I'm just like, you know what, I don't have time to see people I like, let alone people I don't like. So I'm very precious with my time. Yeah, and also I just don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, I love
so, you
that.
know, like I think coming from Hong Kong and, you know, lived in London most of my life, and it's tricky to come to a place like Perth because it's so chill. But I think at a certain age, you don't want to go out to all these parties anymore. You don't want to hang out with assholes. You know, don't want to be seen in a certain place. You know, like my great night out is watching Netflix at home with my husband.
Yeah.
Go to bed and at 10 o'clock, you know, 10:30 latest, you know. One interesting thing that happened with my taste bud during this whole perimenopause thing is that I completely lost interest in alcohol.
Oh.
So I haven't been drinking at all for like the past 2 years. But we started drinking less before anyway. I mean, not that we were big drinkers, maybe like a glass here and there, but now completely is so not interested. I think your taste buds change a lot during this whole perimenopause phase.
They do, and also realizing what you want to feel like, you know, the next day and all those things, that it can change so much.
Yeah. I also think that I say no to toxic people much easier now compared to before. And I think it's really important for women, especially going through this stage, to be surrounded by people that understand you and support you, because there's so much shit you have to deal with every day. And if you're surrounded by people who don't support you, it's a very hard journey, hard and very long journey.
That's amazing. So, friends, that was our first dance with the hormonal monster. What did you think? Did you relate? Do you agree with Grace that some of this shit has to change at a systemic level for women to be able to live their lives, their full lives, with grace and energy and without shame? Please tell us. We love reviews here on Mid. They help us reach more women. So please feel free to pop into wherever you're listening to this and leave us one. And if you want to hear more about lives upturned in midlife, may I suggest you go back to our invisibility episode of season 2 with the author Jane Tara. She found herself on her 50th birthday, dumped via text and with a bankrupt business and a whole pile of mess to clean up. Her story of pulling herself back into focus is extraordinary too. If you want to find out more about Grace, her business and her menopause advocacy work, all the links are in our show notes. And also, excitingly, as you would have gathered from that, Grace has an excellent Rolodex of the kind of people you should be following and listening to for information about menopause and perimenopause. And we are also going to share all of those. Remember, though, do your own research, talk to your medical professionals, because we can't verify everything that's in all of those links, of course. But they are the places that Grace finds really helpful information, and maybe you will too. Big love to you, my friends. We'll see you next week when I am talking to an Australian journalist about whom the word esteemed could have been coined, about something that brings our lives all sorts of joy and comfort and nourishment, food. And thank you to our amazing mid-team, executive producer Naima Brown, our producer Tali Blackman, and audio producers Leah Porges and Tom Lyon. See you next week.
Thanks for listening. What an epic pivot. Thanks for hanging out with us again today. We'll be back next week with a chat about sex. Getting enough? Too much? Does it hurt? Why? Where did our libidos go? What can we do to chase it down again? That is all coming your way from next week, so we'll see you then. And if you'd like more more Grace Lam, a little bit of Unleashed while you're there, we have links to all of those shows in our show notes. Well is produced by me, Claire Murphy, and Grace Rouvray, with audio production by Scott Stronach, social production by Ellie Moore, and video production by Julian Rosario. Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we've recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and the Wanneroo people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Dreaming of treating yourself with new bed linen as we head into winter? Let us make your dreams come true. Right now, when you sign up to become a Mamma Mia subscriber, you'll go into the draw to win $2,000 at Bed Threads. Beautiful French flax linen, organic cotton sheets and towels to match. Yum. For as little as $7.41 a month, as a subscriber to Mamma Mia, you'll get access to every article, every podcast, and every single video we make. Plus access to Move, our at-home fitness app. And you're supporting independent women's media, and for that, we thank you. Subscribe today for your chance to win your dream bed combo and accessories, with thanks to Bed Threads. Click the link in the show notes and subscribe to Mamma Mia today for your chance to win. Entries close April 30, T's and C's apply.